Good afternoon. Welcome to the Translating Opportunity, a strategy for Talent Strong Texas Pathways. Let me first say thank you to the Ascendium Education Group for providing the grant funding for us to do this project in Texas. So welcome. Today what we will be talking about is multilingual learners of English and the project that began almost a year ago, last spring, with some planning sessions. And then today, we want to provide you with an overview of the project and then how you and your college can be engaged in the project going forward. As you know, as I started out, the Talent Strong Texas Pathways framework provides the opportunity for us to incorporate Translating Opportunity Texas for our students, our multi-language learners of English students, to make sure that we connect with them, that they achieve milestones, they progress to gain the skills they need and their work-related experience, and then to succeed. Just like we've always said with Talent Strong Texas Pathways, we want every student who walks through our doors to be able to experience this pathway to success for, of course, their upward socio and economic mobility. And if we do that for every student, not only is it the pathways model, but we also have to provide the services necessary for their psychological and basic needs to be met so that they can be successful in their academic pursuits. So what is Translating Opportunity Texas? Translating Opportunity Texas, as you can see, is a coalition of partners who you will meet today that are working with Texas colleges to establish effective English as second language practices. And of course, it's within your Talent Strong Texas Pathways framework for institutional reform. And that, of course, includes from adult education to credentials of value, including industry-based certifications, certificates, and degrees leading to careers with living wages. As I said, Translating Opportunity Texas began earlier this year, and we have 4 colleges that are kicking this off with us: Amarillo College, El Paso Community College, Houston Community College, and Brazosport College. So I would like to ask Ann Bartlett from Brazosport College to talk a little bit about why Brazosport College chose to be engaged in this and a little bit about the work that's going on there. So Ann, if you would unmute and tell us a little bit about it. If Ann is on. That. Maybe not. Doesn't look like Ann has been able to join us. I know she was traveling, so she may have run into some challenges with all the weather that we're having around the country. So let me just mention a little bit about, you'll hear more about what the colleges are doing, but the 4 colleges really see this as an opportunity to focus on, oh, she just joined. Let me let her in. Perfect timing. And we're just now bringing you in. So Ann, if you would share a little bit about why Brazosport College has been engaged and became engaged in Translating Opportunity Texas for your multilingual learners of English, and why it's important and what you're doing. Ann, you may have not heard all of that. Ann, we're ready for you.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Oh, thank goodness. I got a new laptop and it's not working, and I got locked out of Zoom and I called in and that didn't work. So you guys, please forgive me for the technological changes. Um, Dr. Ellis, I believe that you wanted me to share Brazosport College's reasoning behind participating in the program. And so I thought that I would just take a couple of minutes to describe who I am and what I do at BC. So I am the Vice President for Industry and Community Resources. And what that means is that I supervise all of our non-credit instruction at Brazosport College with a strong focus on adult education and literacy, community education, and corporate training. So Dr. Ellis had approached the college as a whole last spring and had asked us if we wanted to engage in the project. And we had to think about it for a little bit because we're at the front end of our SACS reaffirmation, and we have had a lot of changes in our credit, instructional, and student services areas. And so we knew where we couldn't lean in, and we knew that institutionally one of the ways that we could lean in was to look at non-credit instruction and how that fit into the puzzle. So we decided to focus on non-credit because our non-credit populations are often more at risk than traditional credit students, and our non-credit instructional staff should ideally be more calibrated to assist these high-need students. And so Brazosport College has been focusing more on developing pathways from non-credit to credit, especially given House Bill 8 and the opportunities that that provides. And so, for example, our adult education and literacy programs allow for integrated education and training programs, or IETs. And at BC, with our AEL programs, we focus on instructional programs on the credit side of the house and pairing those that are aligned with high-skill, high-growth occupations. We are also working a lot on creating pathways from non-credit allied health to credit-bearing healthcare programs, including the traditional things that you would think about, nursing, EMT, etc. However, we are also working with ATD on a pre-healthcare cohort where Brazosport has decided to look at our non-credit pipelines into our health services management bachelor's degree and what that pathway looks like. So with that as context, we really wanted to engage in this MLLE project to see what we were doing well, where we knew that we were missing the ball, and quite frankly, to learn what we didn't know. So we know, for example, that these students need high-touch support, that they need forms and communications in languages other than Spanish. And quite frankly, we think that they also need instructional programs in Spanish. So another thing that we're doing right now is piloting a program that's offering an electrical technician OSA completely in Spanish. We are leveraging our adult education and literacy program for that, as well as some Perkins leadership funds. So, we're already doing this work. We know that we're missing the ball. A space that we know we're missing the ball is that our ESL students who may want to pursue a degree can't do it right now if Spanish is their primary language, because the TSIA is only administered in English. And so how do we navigate those internal institutional barriers that are set sometimes by the state, but also that we create ourselves by accident? And finally, I think that we're interested in learning about what we don't know. One of the beautiful things about this project is that we're able to obtain, with the help of SESI and TAC and all kinds of groups, what the students say. We know what we know, but we don't know everything because we're not asking the students. And I'm sure you guys are all aware that we're all running in circles trying to put out fires, and we don't always take time to figure out what the students say. So being able to gather that and incorporate that into our analysis is really important. And finally, I think the big ROI for us institutionally is that while we are piloting our MLLE work on the non-credit side of the house, we know that we're going to be able to scale findings and really make significant impacts for all of our student population, but we're kind of doing it in a safe space so we can figure out what's going on, and then we can apply it to our larger student population. Dr. Ellis, does that provide some context?
Does, and thank you so much. That was really terrific. I appreciate you sharing where you are in the context of your institution, but also some of the challenges that you're facing going into this, that I'm sure we all will. We know that our ESL students are a very diverse population, but we also know that each of our institutions has its own context. And so that is critical to this work in Translating Opportunity Texas, to be cognizant of both. And thank you so speaking so clearly about that from Brazosport College's perspective. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. You guys have a great weekend.
Thank you. So with that, what I would like to do now is move on so that you get to hear a little bit about the project background and the purpose, and then the actual activities. So with that, let me turn it over, Vanessa, to you.
Yeah. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Vanessa Cadle, and I serve as the partner and chief strategy officer at an organization called Student Ready Strategies. And I'm thrilled to be here with you all. I am sad because my partner in crime here from West Ed, Amy Getz, is experiencing a snowstorm, so she is not able to be here with us today. So I'm going to be giving our full project background and purpose and talking a little bit about some of the assistance. So Amy and I really started this journey around translating opportunity back in 2023. We started talking about this when our organization was examining developmental education pathways, looking at curricular maps for math and English. And a lot of the institutions we were working with gave us their ESL pathways. And so we started to examine those and realized that these sometimes were not connecting to gateway courses. And this could also be causing barriers for students, and we wanted to learn more. And I talked to Amy about this, and she wanted to learn more as well. We started researching and realizing that, what the field needed was a paper that pulled everything together. And so we, again, with funding from Ascendium, thank you to them, pulled together resources to answer the questions around what do we currently know about the post-secondary MLE population? What are those outcomes? Can we find outcomes for those students? What federal, state, and institutional policies are currently impacting MLE students in our post-secondary spaces? And then what type of structures or design or practices support multilingual learners? And then finally, what supports do you all need as post-secondary faculty and staff? And just like Anne said, most importantly, what do the students need? And in our paper, you can look at things you can do immediately by role. So that's scattered throughout the paper. We also did curricular mapping with Texas community colleges. And so I thank you. That is how Dr. Ellis and I got connected around this, and we started this whole conversation. So Texas was involved in this from the very beginning and is highlighted in our paper. We also did 50 state policy scan to look at what's going on around the country and an extensive literature review. We also interviewed students and did a lot of stakeholder interviews from across the country. So this paper is sort of the foundation for the work that we are doing now, and turned into a great project that I'm going to describe a little bit more. Martha, you can go ahead.
So let me just tell everyone, these slides will be posted on the events page, so you will have a copy of those, and they have links to what Vanessa was just referring to.
That's great. Thanks, Martha. And so what is the purpose of Translating Opportunity Texas? I think Martha touched on this, but we really came together in support of all the community college in Texas establishing effective ESL pathways. And just like Anne said, that's from the non-credit side all the way through credit, adult education, through any type of credential of value. We also are really working on co-developing with the institutions processes, policies, tools to help redesign and accelerate ESL pathways for students. Finally, or not finally, but right now we're working with that first cohort, and their activities, as Anne mentioned, are going to inform a second cohort. We'll tell you more about that opportunity at the end of the call. And then all of you will be helping to contribute to the scaling of these best practices across the state and what we hope to eventually scale across the country. And so the 4 participating colleges that we have now really are providing leadership for this institutional reform. They are providing data, they are working with researchers, they are working to get technical assistance. And so that is number 1. They are very much leaders in this space. They also are working to provide clear and accessible credential pathways. And then prepare their faculty and staff. I think that's something that Anne mentioned as well. Kind of understanding what is going to work and implementing student-centered supports in a safe space to then be able to scale them. So all of these things the group is doing, and our 4 project partners Some of us mentioned already, so we have WestEd, of course. Some folks from WestEd are on the call and they can introduce themselves later. We have Ceci, who is really bringing student voice into the project. And of course, the Texas Success Center is our backbone, along with my organization, Student Ready Strategies, who is providing technical assistance. And our cohort 1 colleges, which we also mentioned already, Amarillo, Brazosport, El Paso, and Houston Community College. And so how does this all work together? Again, you'll get these slides so you can look at this a little more deeply. But as I said, Texas Success Center is really providing the backbone to the project. They're managing and coordinating with you all, really working within the Texas Pathways framework to bolster this project. And then the institutions in the first cohort and then in the second, as we said, are working to develop and implement plans to improve and accelerate ESL pathways. And through that, they are going to be informed by research. We're getting data, we've done curricular mapping. Our paper provides a foundation as well. WestEd is also doing student advisory groups from with students from each of our institutions. Ceci is working on student focus groups, and we're also doing case studies, which you'll hear a little bit more in depth in a little bit. And all of the institutions are supported by technical assistance from my organization, Student Ready Strategies, different resources that we're developing throughout the project. WestEd is also developing modules for professional learning. But what I love the most about this cohort model is the way the institutions and their students get to work together. And we're really leaning into that as well. So it's a really peer learning cohorted model. Once that happens and the institutions are really working on action plans, we're going to be refining those processes and tools in that safe space, helping to empower local leaders. And then again, like I said, really hoping to get to that state and national impact of improving student outcomes and supporting actions across Texas, but not only in Texas, but nationally, so that we continue to do this research. Something that we learned when we were writing the paper was a lot of folks saying no one's taken on this whole K-12, thinking about K-12 through adult education all the way through career for students that are multilingual learners of English. And so we want to keep this work going through these 2 cohorts. And so I'll be doing a little bit of our project activities and updates of where we are so far. In the technical assistance space, right now, the participating colleges have created curricular maps. And what these do, we'll show you one in a second, but they showcase the different courses that the institutions have on their books that they are offering in their ESL pathways and what the progression looks like through those courses. We are doing a deep dive into a communications review of all of the student-facing communications that go out to students that are multilingual learners of English. We're also looking at the support services for students and doing a review of those, creating a report around what is offered to multilingual learners of English, and also doing a deep dive into the institutional policy that surrounds these students. Finally, each institution is going to create an action plan and create some goals around each of those areas. And then start on implementing those. And so we, as Student Ready Strategies, will be helping implement those and monitoring the progress and just being there to help coach throughout the process. So here's a sample ESL map. They're really hard to see. They're hard to take a picture of because there's so many courses. But what you can see is the purple boxes. Those are adult education courses. And they are, the arrows show progression and how students can move through those. All of the placement requirements are in that lower right box. So you can see how many different levels of placement students have to see when they are going into these different courses and what tests they're taking to get into them. You can also see a few prerequisites on there, which is great to see, but these are what you're seeing across the top, and then into those prerequisites are how those courses are going from that ESL basic all the way into an English 1301 course. And so after we have completed the major technical assistance activities and the institutions have been implementing their action plans, we will be creating some assets for the field, which includes an institutional assessment for other institutions who want to understand how to really get to the bottom of their landscape around multilingual learners on their campus, including all of those areas that I just described. And also thinking about not only assessing it, but then what do you do once you know? So what does that implementation guide look like for institutions who are seeking to do the same thing and are not a part of this cohort? And I'm going to hand it over to Coral.
Thank you, Vanessa. Hello, my name is Coral Noonan Terry, and I'm the Program Manager of Special Projects at CESI. And we are delighted to be part of this project. You've heard it mentioned several times that student voice is a key element of this project. And we are capturing the student voice in a variety of ways. So CESI is in charge of the focus groups. We've already held our first set of student focus groups to learn more about the multilingual learner experience. And we held it at El Paso Community College. And then we have a couple more focus group visits coming up. And we're going to create student video clips from our conversations with these students. We want to hear what's working well for them. What do they wish they would have known or they hope will be improved in the future so we can better the experience of our multilingual learners. And I will turn it over now to Emily, who will talk about another key component of capturing the student voice.
I think that you've heard from everyone now how important this cohort model is, not only thinking about our partners in terms of the different colleges that are involved, whether it was the first cohort or those of you who are thinking about joining us for the second, but also considering the role of our students as a key stakeholder group in the work that we do. And so one of the other ways that we're making sure that we incorporate the student voice is through case studies. We're currently learning alongside 6 different students at our 4 different cohort 1 colleges. And I'm with WestEd, and I'm working with those college students to understand what the pipeline experience has been like for them. Vanessa showed you kind of the squiggle line map as it appears to us as researchers, but what does that look like on the kind of a boots on the ground perspective for our students? That's what the case study hopes to answer. It also allows us to kind of highlight the exigencies of the current moment. There's a lot of uncertainty for many of our students in trying to figure out what does this mean to try and get into different parts of the pathway? How are different options available to me, or how are they foreclosed based on institutional requirements or state level requirements, like Anne was saying at Brazo Sport, right? So it's not just about what's unique to your institutional context, but what's happening at the state level, and how are students experiencing that, making sense of that? How do they understand the resources that are available to us? So even though if you're joining us for cohort 2, we won't be collecting data as case studies from your students directly, we'll be able to provide you with in-depth profiles of students who are similar to your students, who are trying to make sense of this pathway and understand what this looks like from their perspective and from kind of a perspective that's grounded in their communities. And so we're excited to be able to share that data with you as well.
I think I am up next. Hi, everyone. My name is Haley McNamara, and I am a research associate at WestEd. I just want to echo my excitement for being on this project and getting to work with y'all. I'll be working with our Student Advisory Council to help center the perspectives and voices of multilingual learners of English, and ensure that the solutions that each college generates based on the data that you're going to be receiving are really relevant, effective, and grounded in students' actual sort of lived experiences. When working with students, I really aim to work with them in ways that are non-extractive, which for me means that they are reciprocal. So students who are on the council will directly benefit from their engagement and gain new sort of professional knowledge and skills that will benefit them moving forward. We seek to engage with them in ways that are meaningful, meaning that the learning that they generate will actually impact sort of how college teams are thinking about and approaching their work. And then lastly, in order to accomplish those first 2 things, I aim to work with students in ways that are sustained. So typically working with students over a continuous and sort of longer period of time, rather than just sort of one and done, one-off feedback sessions. In a little bit more concrete terms, the Student Advisory Council will consist of up to 2 students from each participating college. These students will first receive training in user-centered design thinking to help them understand how you can use raw data to generate new solutions and ideas. Once they've gone through that training, they'll really be like co-designers and advisors for the project team as well as college teams. So they're going to review and provide feedback on all of sort of the technical assistance that's going to be offered to the schools that Vanessa described just a few minutes ago, including the curriculum maps, the policy, comms and service reviews, the action implementation plans, and more. And then college teams will also have opportunities to work directly with the Student Advisory Council and co-design new tools and solutions sort of together. And yeah, just want to echo again my excitement for being here with y'all today.
Thanks, Haley. So with that, we're going to move into professional learning modules.
Hi, I'm Joey Navarez. I'm a program associate with WestEd. I am helping with these professional learning modules, which are intended just to support ESL departments and the faculty to, just identify areas in which we could give more information and present project ideas. They will be more widely distributed once they're officially recorded, but the benefit of participation for the cohort colleges is that they will have people present to help shape them. There'll be an initial live session in which the cohort colleges will give feedback, and it will be recorded afterwards. There are 2 currently under development. They are about integrated reading and writing and incorporating resources into the MLE context. And the next 2 will be developed next year. Next slide, please. Thank you. Yes, I'm also developing the resource hub. It is live on the Texas Success Center's website. It contains a link to the white paper that was mentioned earlier, upon which this work is expanding. It currently has case-making materials that include student videos, and as any publications may occur out of this work, it will be housed here.
Thanks, Joey. So with that, Fred, you want to talk to how the other colleges can get involved?
I'll be glad to. Hello to all. I've known you before in my previous role. I'm now helping Martha in the coordination with the Texas Success Center. This work is important work. We have the first 4 colleges in the first cohort, but we'll be looking for 4 more colleges for the second cohort. We will be having a concurrent session coming up at the Pathway Institutes in April 2 through 4. They'll be on Thursday morning. Be an opportunity if you have more questions that you'd like to ask, or you can bring people from your team that might be interested in this type of work, and will be an opportunity to visit with them and share, answer your questions. And depending on that, we will have instructions then about how you can apply for the cohort. The goal is that the next 4 colleges would start their training at the Fall Institute, and then go forward into the next year, start next year in the work. So that's what I have in opportunities, and I hope that you seriously consider joining us in this effort.
Thank you, Fred. Let me see. If you have questions, you're welcome to come off mute, put them in the chat. And while you're thinking about that, so we're the concurrent session that will be at the Pathways Institute, as Fred mentioned, will provide more information, and then also the application process, as he said, to be a part of cohort 2. But we also know that we would love to have all of the colleges engaged through the resource hub, but also the technical assistance you will receive through the modules that are being developed, and we will continue to provide opportunities for peer learning across the colleges in Texas, so that you will have opportunities to share with one another as you continue to reform and improve your pathways for your multilingual learners of English, your ESL programs, and integrate them more fully into either the continuing ed credits or credit programs, so that they can have credential of value either through a certification, certificate, or an associate degree or transfer to a university. So that is the goal of all of us working together to help improve the pathways for our multilingual learners of English through our ESL programs at whatever level they enter into our particular colleges. So I can't see the chat. Questions?
I can do
Vanessa,
that.
can you see the chat, or Fred?
I can
I
see
can
it.
see it.
Oh, go ahead,
Uh,
Fred.
Can you say more about the status of professional learning modules, particularly related to IRW, and when and how those can be used or assessed?
Yeah, so Joey, do you know, I know they're in development now. Vanessa or Joey, do you know when those technical assistance module for the INRW will be finished?
I will defer to the West Ed folks on that one. I'm
Joey,
not
any
sure.
idea?
Joey,
From what I
left
understand,
the call. I'm sorry to interrupt, Martha.
that's okay.
So the IRW module will be the second one that we're developing. It's about a 7-week turnaround. I believe that it'll be available probably around May. We have our facilitators picked out. I'll be I guess the host of those. And we've got our 2 experts already on board for that. And so we're having a preliminary meeting with them in about a week or so, I believe. And it's about a 7-week development period after that for us to get their material and then do a recording session to get feedback from our cohort colleges and then to make it available. So I would anticipate probably May would be the earliest that they'd be available, but the plan is then for those to be available in the recorded version for institutions to be able to use in like a PD setting moving forward. Does that answer your question?
Thanks, Emily, so much for that. What is, I think, important for all of you to know as well is we do have faculty reviewers from the Texas colleges for these modules. So they're from our 4 cohort colleges, they're providing input into those technical assistance modules. And we look forward to getting feedback from the people that utilize the modules as well, because we will have a continuous improvement process built in to the technical assistance. So they will continue to be updated as needed based on your feedback and input as you utilize them going forward. But they will be open source, so you will have access to them. As soon as each one is completed, we will put them up and you will have access to them immediately. Fred, any other questions?
No other, well, we just got one. How are colleges measuring the success of their MLE pathway initiatives?
Sure. So I can add to that. The institutions are setting goals on an action plan related to the areas around their curricular pathways, student communications, thinking about the student voice and their policies and their student services. So each one of those areas will have goals with metrics associated with them. So as Martha mentioned earlier, every institution has their own context. And so we're not setting overarching metrics for each institution is setting their own goals and will be tracking toward them in specific areas related to their ESL pathways. And we know, and I know Emily can probably talk more about this, but receiving data across the institutions was a bit difficult. And so finding some baseline there was proved to be harder than we thought. And so that's why we're really focused on the institutions themselves and the way they would like to measure their own metrics, their goals.
So Vanessa highlighted a challenge we faced right off when we first started this work, because we thought many of you are familiar with the ERC data warehouse that we have in Texas. And unfortunately, we're not able to utilize that for this work because they don't capture this data. So as when we don't have it statewide, then we, of course, work with each institution individually. And of course, it's not the coordinating board's responsibility either. So that's where we are with the state level.
Any more questions? Thanks.
Well, let me say thank you so much for your time today, for your interest. Look forward to seeing you at the April Institute at the concurrent session. If there's also these slides, as I said, will be available, as will the recording of this session. So you're welcome to share it with colleagues at your institution. And there are email addresses in the slide deck. So feel free, if you have specific questions, to reach out to the person that is responsible for each section. I have to tell you, it is such a joy to work with all of these different organizations who are all committed and compassionate about the students that we serve, particularly the multilingual learners of English in this project. And we know that you are too. So we look forward to all working together so that they have better pathways to their goals of social and economic mobility for themselves, their families, and the communities in which they live. Thank you so much for your time today and look forward to seeing you in April. Thank you. Bye-bye.